There are a lot of visuals that are difficult to come back from. You know, seeing things that when people see, you go, don't know how you're going to live that one down. One of the premier ones is any sort of video of you leaving in handcuffs, right? Like if you're anywhere and all of a sudden a video exists of you being handcuffed and escorted away by an officer of the law, that video is probably going to haunt you for a while. It's the sort of thing that people, you know, in lawsuits that are probably a little frivolous as long as the handcuffing isn't bad. I don't know. I have no idea where I'm going with that sentence, but you get the idea. Like if it's literally what we're about to look at, just being walked out of an event in handcuffs, people will be like, it causes serious emotional distress, but it is a little traumatic, right? To see somebody you know, or maybe somebody in this case in a position of power, like a head coach, being escorted out of a game in handcuffs. It's just not something you see. It's not something you see as a fan of sports. You don't see fans of the teams at the sporting event, or not coaches, like the head coach of the team at the sporting event that you're watching, that you paid for a ticket to go to, leaving in handcuffs. And yet that is the situation that we find ourselves in here today. And I am fully on the side of the person that ends up being handcuffed, that this is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. Upon conducting my own thorough armchair investigation here. This is the Tuskegee men's basketball team. They're a Division II college basketball team, so Tuskegee University, I believe it is. They're pretty good, actually. They are now, after a recent loss at Morehouse, 15-5 on the season, right? They're looking like they're going to be in the postseason in Division II college basketball, so very exciting times for Tuskegee University. But unfortunately, that recent loss at Morehouse was a rivalry, right? Apparently a pretty heated rivalry. These two teams don't like each other very much. These two different colleges, universities, they don't like each other very much. And they beat Morehouse earlier in the season. But now they go on the road to Atlanta, and they play Morehouse, and they lose. But obviously, the actual 77-69 loss for Tuskegee at Morehouse is not the big takeaway here. But the big takeaway here is that the Tuskegee coach, the losing coach, is escorted out in handcuffs. This is the Morehouse gym. This is the coach for Tuskegee being escorted out of the arena while the band is still playing in handcuffs. For like, I mean, there's a million questions. You can see this guy being like, I don't even know what's going on. Right, there's obviously not a lot of energy or animosity. There's some pretty funny faces of people in the stands going like, what is happening right now? Like looking at the situation and going, we're just, you know, kind of intrigued. But I have dug more into this. And like I was saying, I'm on the side of the Tuskegee coach, and the fact that he ended up leaving this in handcuffs and that this visual exists. And to be honest, even ESPN is posting about how the head coach of Tuskegee, Benji Taylor, was escorted off the floor in handcuffs. It is ridiculous that this guy was handcuffed at the end of the game. We'll start with some footage that some Tuskegee fans took during the actual game itself. Of course, rivalry game, it's intense. Now, the issue that the Tuskegee fans had was actually with the police officer that I believe was involved in this situation, right? He is over here, and they're filming him, and you'll kind of see that, you'll hear them in the background being like, wow, he's doing nothing, and then you'll see what he's doing nothing about later. So you can hear the people, the reason they're recording, right, they're saying, oh, well, he's just kind of sitting there chuckling. Good work. I love the lady that goes, on his phone, just detailing the sins being committed by this guy. And the reason that they are upset, like the reason the Tuskegee fans are taking this video, is that apparently members of the Morehouse football team are standing right next to the bench of Tuskegee, just yelling profane shit at them. Like, N-word on drop in this video.
The language is wild. The language is so wild. Miss it!
I mean, they're like, and I love the lady in who's recording, trying to get them to miss a free throw while she's recording this, right? But this is, I can understand why the Tuskegee fans are a little upset. You know what I mean? This is Division II basketball, maybe a couple thousand seats there, but you've got kind of the space on the side of the gym where there are no seats, and you can kind of, if you got a ticket, you can kind of just stand there. There's not going to be actual ticketed seats or anything. It's just buy a ticket and you get in the arena sort of vibe. And they're standing like right next to the bench, the Morehouse football team, and they're giving them the business. Now, I am all for talking trash from the stands. You know what I mean? I think it's fun as long as you don't cross a certain obvious line. I think it is incredibly, it's an incredibly good time, and it's a part of sports, and I love it. But when you're on the actual floor, you know what I mean? Like when you're in this setting, it's a little different than, let's say, a more traditional stadium setting where there's obvious barriers between you and the team. I can understand how if you were on the Tuskegee bench, there is at least an understanding of like, this could escalate. This could become a problem. This guy's 5 feet away. There's no barriers at all. He's standing on the floor right next to the bench, just shouting at him, like squaring up. You know what I mean? And that can become a problem. And it is clear from this video that the Tuskegee fans had identified that this was an issue before the end of the match. This was something that was pretty obvious. This was something that was so obvious they felt the need to literally take a video about it and then post it. You know what I mean? Like the police aren't doing anything. This policeman's not doing anything. He's kind of laughing. He's checking his phone while these people are just, standing right next to the bench, essentially berating the bench. And then Tuskegee loses. We get to the postgame handshake line. And that is where we get, in my opinion, the definitive video that this guy being handcuffed was absolutely ridiculous. Because apparently what happens, right? And I've searched for a couple of different angles for this. And I think I've found two. There's one from here. There's one from basically like across the gym. And then there's one from behind the scorers table right here. So we'll start with the across the gym angle. The handshake line is then joined, right? This is the Morehouse team, by multiple of the football players that were talking trash. Which is, if you know anything about sports in general, a security breach, essentially, right? Like it's dangerous. The handshake line at the end of a basketball game is supposed to be the two teams shaking hands. I mean, I feel like it's a little self-explanatory. There shouldn't be random people from the stands that are in that handshake line. It is an obvious security concern, right? Because you can deal with and you can administer all of the people that are there and are on the team. The people that aren't, just other people that happen to be on the football team in this case that were there talking shit to the bench in a kind of demonstrative right next to them on the floor way the entire game. Those people being in the handshake line obviously opens you up to a whole kettle of other problems that could potentially spring out of that. So apparently, obviously it's a blurry video. Some of the people that end up in this handshake line are football players, right? They're football players for Morehouse. And we're not going to get excellent camera work here, but you see the policeman in question. He's kind of wandered out to the middle to check on everything. And the far side is Tuskegee, and here's the head coach, Benji Taylor of Tuskegee. And he does not seem, at this particular moment, to be super bent out of shape, right? This does not seem like somebody who is simmering and about to blow, who's going to cause some sort of huge issue. He daps up the other head coach, like gives him a nice big hug, honestly, more friendly than your average head coach handshake. Going like, hey man, good game, tough, you guys played well out there, great inbounds plays, whatever, right? Big old dap up, big old hug, and then comes through and starts shaking hands and stuff. And then it cuts to this ad, but then for some reason cuts back, and we see Benji Taylor is still going. And he's like, hold on a second. He turns around, and this is where the football players are coming in. They're kind of coming in behind his team on the floor in the handshake line. And Benji Taylor's like, okay, this is, so sorry, they weren't in this team. They're coming from over here. They come in behind the Tuskegee team, and Benji Taylor basically looks at that and goes, get off the floor. This is ridiculous. You guys are not supposed to be on the floor. This could cause, more of a problem, especially with emotions high, end of a rivalry game. You don't want to light the touch paper here, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, right? And Benji Taylor then, you see after he's like making this case that these guys should not be in the line, that it's a security breach. Also, we've got, Mule Team 6 over here looking the other direction, not even paying attention. He has no idea this is going on. Okay, so Benji Taylor is entirely right to be upset about this. This is a breach in security. They're not handling this well. And the policeman over here is looking the other direction. Could be a great policeman. On the day, he's dropping at least a 6.0 rating here, right? This dude is not locked in. He does not see this is happening. And Benji Taylor, then when he comes over, tries to get the policeman's attention. Like he walks in front of the football players and he's like, stop coming through here. And then you see it kind of cuts and he's with the police officer here. And that's where we can pick up the other video. So you see like the football players, that's them coming into the handshake line, which is ridiculous. And then he goes over to the policeman and he's like, yo, these guys should not be here, right? These guys should not be here. And he's looking at him, he's pointing at him. This is not, nothing about this to me is demonstrative at all. He's not like overly leaning into the face of the police officer or anything. He's just pointing at the players. He's pointing at whatever. And he's saying, hey, look, you got to do something about this, man. Like, hey, what the hell? Right? But I don't see anything there that's bad. And then the police officer, you can see him say, for what? And that's the moment the police officer goes, I'm going to need to cuff you. And like pulls out his handcuffs and just grabs it. That was it. That was it. That's why this dude ended up leaving the game in cuffs. Like grabs his wrist, puts the handcuffs on him, and then does that. Like this is just absolutely insane. Like again, guy could be a good police officer, right? I don't know this guy from, I don't know this guy from 20 other dudes in a police officer's uniform. But for whatever reason on this day, maybe maybe his Wheaties went bad the day before, so he didn't have any breakfast. He's making a terrible call here. Like obvious, upon video review, this makes zero sense, right? Like this guy is not in any way doing anything that would justify having to put handcuffs on him. He is not a threat to the peace. He's not causing any problems. He's just telling you to do your job in a way where I don't think you're particularly feeling threatened, like he's actually going to start some shit. He's just mad because there's a bunch of football players following his team in the handshake line. Like that's a problem. You know what I mean? And when you read the article about it, it's ridiculous. Okay. Fortunately, the athletic director of Tuskegee, Reginald Ruffin, said the coach was trying to make sure the conference mandated security protocol was enforced after what they described as a security breach. We have security measures for our protection of our officials, student athletes, and spectators. He said those measures, the mandated by the conference and at all levels. You got to intermingle with football players shaking hands with the team. You don't do that. That's a security breach. The problem is the security officer is giving a different account of events, even though there is multiple videos of this. The athletic director said he asked the security officer, can you please remove them from the line? That's what he asked the officer. Ruffin added the security officer's account differed, claiming Taylor was very aggressive and the aggressor, which Ruffin said was not accurate. He said the officer cited that perception as the reason Taylor was placed in cuffs. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. Everybody needs to calm the fuck down. All right? Because the football players shouldn't have been in the line. And we shouldn't be cuffing the head coaches of teams for pointing out that something that is legally not supposed to be happening, according to all the rules of the game and the conference and the sport, is happening, and you should probably stop it from happening. It's one of the goofiest things I've ever seen. I feel so bad for Tuskegee and this Taylor dude, who's the head coach, because this is blasted everywhere that he got like escorted out in cuffs. And before I looked into it, I figured it was some sort of wild brawl. You know, like he's never really going to be able to live this down just because this ref or this cop made just an insane call.